To understand the shape of something truly massive, you usually have to step far away from it. If you stand right on top of a giant figure carved into a hillside, you might just see patches of chalk and grass. You miss the design because you live inside it. The same thing happens when we try to look at the history of our own world. We are entirely blind to the strangest parts of existence simply because we are too close to them. Take the relationship between humans and horses. For thousands of years, a person riding a horse was a normal, everyday sight. But if we try to view it as the very first human did, seeing a two-legged creature suddenly mount and steer a massive, muscle-bound beast, it looks like a wild, impossible magic trick. We only stop seeing the magic because routine breeds fatigue. When we look at the origins of life, we use words like evolution to soothe ourselves. The word implies a smooth, gradual slope, and that slowness tricks us into feeling like we understand how nothing turned into something. But if you hit fast forward on the timeline and watch a forest violently erupt from the dirt into the canopy in a matter of seconds, the comfort of that illusion breaks. The speed of an event tells us absolutely nothing about why it happened in the first place. A man turning into a pig over 10 years is exactly as inexplicable as a man turning into a pig in 10 seconds. A slow miracle is still a miracle. This brings us to the first massive anomaly in the historical timeline. Out of the purely biological patterns of nature, something entirely disconnected appeared: human consciousness and human will. Inside the caves of our earliest ancestors, the most prominent evidence is a series of deliberate, perfectly proportioned sketches. We find the work of an artist. No other creature operates this way.
A cow never experiments with wearing 4 boots, and a monkey doesn't draw portraits in the mud. Humans drape themselves in clothes for dignity, construct complex laws to govern behavior, and create art for purely abstract reasons. These actions are completely alien to the rest of the natural world, and as soon as the historical record begins, we see societies of staggering scale. In places like Egypt and Babylon, we find colossal architecture, painted portraits, and intricate hierarchies that appear fully formed. Viewed objectively, this upright creature appears disconnected from the slow, incremental patterns of biology. The arrival of man stands as a total break from the behavior of every other living thing. Because humanity operates outside standard biological rules, human history is driven by the search for meaning. If you remove religious wars, philosophical quests, and the hunger for discovery, the whole human story stops entirely. To make sense of the cosmos, the ancient world split its efforts into 2 distinct camps. The mythologists looked at the universe and spun rich, imaginative stories about gods and heroes. The philosophers withdrew to examine the world through rigid logic, trying to map out absolute rational truth on a blank slate. But this division eventually hit a wall.
The greatest empires of the ancient world grew old, their cultures stiffened, and they fell into deep pessimism. They realized their poetic myths were ultimately just daydreams, and their cold philosophies could not satisfy the human soul. By the time of the Roman Empire, the ancient world had built the most powerful military and civic machinery the planet had ever seen. Yet internally, it was paralyzed by a profound spiritual bankruptcy. Right in the middle of this exhausted, bureaucratic era, the second great historical anomaly occurred. A singular figure appeared, making a claim so jarring it breaks every established pattern in the history of religion. Before this, the world's great sages and mystics offered instructions for finding peace. They claimed to be messengers of the divine, or they taught methods to escape the physical world entirely. Not a single one of them ever claimed to actually be the architect who built the universe. Then came the assertion that the invisible master of the cosmos was walking around the dusty roads of the Roman Empire, physically talking with tax collectors and local government officials. It is a wildly specific, concrete historical claim, and his execution became the brutal focal point of the era. The political power of kings, the arguments of the philosophers, and the anger of the crowd all converged on a single hill in Jerusalem, acting out the ultimate failure of the ancient world. Treating this event as just another standard myth ignores the raw historical data. It was a glaring exception that shattered everything humanity thought it knew about religion. Modern critics often complain that the theology that followed was too complicated, but they forget the state of the world it was entering. The ancient human mind was a dark labyrinth, like a massive rusted lock full of broken tumblers. You couldn't open it with a simple flat piece of metal. A complex problem requires a tool with highly specific geometry to catch the mechanisms. This solution finally bridged the great ancient divide. It satisfied the craving for a grand romance, while meeting the philosopher's demand for absolute truth, simply by being a true story. From that point on, this faith developed a strange, immortal characteristic. It repeatedly attached itself to great civilizations, and when those civilizations eventually collapsed, everyone naturally assumed the religion would die with them. When the Roman Empire fell, the faith was supposed to vanish in the ruins. When the feudal system rotted away, it was supposed to go with it. By the time the Age of Reason arrived, bringing fierce skepticism and revolution, critics confidently wrote the religion's final obituary. Yet the final obituary is always premature. Instead of fading away, the faith outlives the very forces trying to destroy it, continually finding new life in the ashes of the old world. Human history is truly an unpredictable adventure. The sudden emergence of human consciousness and the persistent survival of this faith remain the two most grounded realities in an otherwise chaotic record.